Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can use Canvas Composable to draw some custom layout in your Jetpack Compose. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So before moving forward with Canvas, I'm going to tell you about offsets. Now offsets is a very important thing to know because in Canvas we'll use offset many times. So let's discuss what offset is. So for that I'm having this very simple image to show you what is offset. So consider your device screen as a Cartesian two-dimensional plane that has two axes, x-axis and y-axis. So x-axis is used to represent horizontal points and y-axis is used to represent vertical points. And the top left corner of your device screen will represent as origin. So when you start moving horizontally towards the right side of your device screen, ultimately your x coordinate will increase. Similarly, if you are going downwards from the top left corner to the bottom, it will increase the y coordinates. If you are moving horizontally, you will increase x coordinates. If you are moving downwards, you are increasing your y coordinates. And if you want to represent any specific point in this Cartesian plane, or you can say in your device screen, so to do that we are having offsets. Now offset contain the pair of x and y. So x y pair will eventually use to represent a specific point within a given Cartesian plane, or in our case within our device screen. So this is what offset is. Now it's time to begin with our canvas. So first I'm gonna design this Instagram logo. So basically in this video I will design a lot of logos to understand the draw API and how to draw it. So first we will begin with our Instagram logo. So for that we have a composable, and the composable name is Instagram logo. Okay, and I want to also use here show preview to watch this preview. Let me import this preview first. So background is true. Now in this Instagram logo composable I'm gonna use canvas. So what is canvas actually? Canvas is nothing but it acts as a drawing sheet, and in this drawing sheet using your draw API you can draw the custom layouts. So use modifier in here. I want padding of 12 dp, and let me import this dp first. We have here size of 300 dp. So right now we have a canvas that has a size of 300 dp, or you can say we have a plain drawing sheet that has a size of 300 dp. And in this drawing sheet now it's time to draw some components using draw API. So when you open up this Instagram icon, here you can see we have three components. So basically when you want to design something with canvas, you should break down your requirement in components so that for you it's very easy to design. So if you break down this icon into small chunks, we have three things. We have a rounded rectangle that covers the outer area. Next we have two different circles that has a different center, different radius. So let's design this thing. So first I'm going to design this rounded rectangle. So for that in this canvas it's time to use draw API. So we have here draw, because I want to draw a rounded rectangle. So to do that we have here draw round rectangle, and in its draw round rectangle we have a lot of parameters like brush, top left offset, size and corner radius. So we'll use all of them one by one. So first let's talk about the brush. So if you want to use gradient coloring, on that case you can use brush. If you don't want to use gradient coloring, you can use normally color, but for our use case I want to use it. So brush linear gradient, you have to pass the list of colors. So basically we have red and we have blue. Let me import this thing. Okay, so we do have brush. So this is our rounded rectangle, but right now we don't have any corner radius. So let's add it with the help of corner radius. Create an object of corner radius, and in x you can pass 120f, in its y you can pass 120f. Now we have a rounded rectangle, but right now we have a complete rounded rectangle. I want only the border. Okay, so let's see how we can do it. So to do that you can use here style, and in its style you can pass the stroke object, and in this stroke object we have width, and here you can define the width. So for our use case let's here use 12, so it won't work. Let's use here 36. Seems good to me. By default your top left offset of this rounded rectangle will be located at the origin, and also by default it will occupy the whole area of your canvas. So in our case we have 300 dp, so it will occupy all of the space. But if you want to restrict its size, you can use your size and simply give the size. Let's say I want here 12f, then 12f. See, now its size become a 12. So let's remove it because I don't want to use it. Okay, so now we do have our round rectangle. Let's open the Instagram icon. We have to design two more components within this rounded rectangle. We have two circles. First has a center on the center of our canvas. Next we have circle that has a center little bit outside of this circle. So let's design this circle first. So for that we have one more function naming draw circle, and in this draw circle I'm gonna use the same brush. Next you have to pass your radius. So I want to give the radius of 36f. Okay, so let's increase little bit, use here 120f. Okay, let's increase little bit more, 150f. Okay, now it's looking good. Also I want here only the border, so for that you can use here style, and in its style again create an object of stroke and pass the width. So this time I'm going to use here width of 12f. Okay, so we are done with the center circle. Now it's time to create one more circle that has a center somewhere over here. So let's do that. Draw circle. Again I want to use the brush, so simply copy this brush and paste in here. Okay, next we have to pass the radius. So for radius I'm using here 12f. Okay, so let's increase the size little more, use here 24f. Oh yeah, it looks fine to me. Now it's time to change its center. So in this center we have to pass the offset. Now offset represent a specific point in our Cartesian plane, or you can say in our device screen. So we have to calculate x and y coordinates for this circle center. So let's do that. So I want to move this circle from center to somewhere over here. Take the width of the canvas. So if we are getting the width of the canvas, we'll multiply the width by 0.8. Then we will land somewhere over here. Okay. Now if you want to change the y coordinates, on that case you should take the height of your canvas and multiply this thing with small number. Let's say 0.2. So it will represent the point which located somewhere over here. So 0.8 into width will locate somewhere over here. Draw perpendicular from y coordinates, it will meet somewhere over here. So this will become the center of our second circle. So let's see how we can do it. So first use your size, which will give the information of the size of the canvas. Take here width and multiply this thing with 0.8f. Next take its height and multiply this thing with 0.2f. And here you can see 0.8 will locate somewhere over here in the x-axis, and 0.2 multiplied by height will represent a point on the y coordinates over here, and when you draw perpendicular it will meet over here. So by using this approach you can draw a very simple Instagram logo. So we are done with this first logo. Now it's time to design the second logo, which is this one, Facebook. So let me close this one. It's time to begin with this. So for that, just minimize this thing, remove the preview, and on the top I'm going to create one more composable, and this time I'm going to call this Facebook logo. Again I'm using the canvas, having modifier, padding is 12 dp, and size wise it's 300 dp. Now let's start designing it. So if you open this Facebook icon, here you can see we have a rounded rectangle that has a color blue, and within it we have a F. So F is nothing but a text. So let's design it. So for that I'm using here draw round rectangle. We have here color. This time I'm using color because we don't want to use any gradient thing. Color dot blue, it will cover all of the area. So use here preview, show background to true. Okay, so now it's time to give the corner radius. Corner radius is 120f in x and 120f in y. Okay, so this looks cool. Now it's time to design the character F. So for that we are going to use here draw context dot canvas dot. We have here native canvas. So if you want to draw some text, for that you'll use here native canvas that has here draw text naming function. Using this function you can draw any text. Okay, so just press Ctrl P to show all of the parameters. So here we are having text, or you can say character array, then we are having x coordinates, then we are having y coordinates, and lastly the paint. So use your text f. My x coordinates is pretty much on the center, so use the canvas center dot x, and in place of y you can use its center dot y. Okay, lastly we have to pass the paint. So in order to do that, I'm gonna create here paint object. So paint, make sure this paint is coming from Android graphics. So paint, apply, we have here text alignment. So for that I'm using here center. Make sure this center is again coming from this paint. So paint dot align dot center. Next, if you want to give its text size, you can do that thing very easily with the help of text size parameter. So I'm using here 12f. Now simply pass this paint in here. Okay, so I think the size is very small, that's why we are not able to locate it. Use here 120f. Here you can see we have f. Let's use here 320. Okay, so it's still little small. Use here 420. Still it's small. Use here 520. Still it's small. 620. 820. Yeah, I think this will work. Now I'm going to put this Facebook text little bit on the bottom. So for that, just increase the y coordinates. So center dot y plus let's say 120f will work. No, it won't. Just use 220. No, it won't work. Use here 320. Yeah, it will work. And also I want to push this Facebook text little bit on the right side of this rounded rectangle. So for that you have to add few values in your center x. So use here 100f. I think it's look more similar. Now I'm going to change its color. So for that, here in the paint, just define the color. So color is coming from color dot white. Convert this thing into RGB. And here we have our Facebook icon. So now we are going to design messenger logo. So this is the messenger logo and we are going to design this thing. So for that, first we need a composable, and the composable name is messenger logo. And in this I'm gonna use here canvas. Pass your modifier, padding of 12 dp, size of this thing is 300 dp. Okay, now in this I will continue, but before that let's specify the components. So here first component is this oval shape, next we have this small triangle, and lastly this electronic sign. So let's begin with the big component, which is this oval shape. So to draw an oval shape, we are having here a function, and the function name is draw oval. In its color I'm gonna use here blue color. Okay, so next we have here top left. So I don't want to use this top left because by default it uses the origin, so let it be. Next we have here size. So this time I want to use size, and in its width I'm gonna use my canvas width. In its height I'm using my canvas height, multiply our canvas height with 0.95f. So it will shrink a little bit. Use this preview in our messenger to show its preview. Okay, so here we have our oval shape. Now it's time to design our triangle, because there is no direct function that we'll use to draw triangle. For this type of scenario, you are going to use path. So if you want to draw some algebraic component, on that case you will use path, and in this path we'll mention the offset. So it will simply track those offset and create a component. So let's see how we can use it. So to do that, on the bottom we have a function, and the function name is draw path. This is coming from draw API, and in its we have to pass path. Okay, so we will design this thing later. Next we have color. So again I'm using here blue color. And lastly we have style. So for the time being, let's use the same style that we were using for a long time, stroke. And in its width I'm using here 12f. Okay, now it's time to create our path. So in this canvas, let's give the name triangle. Use here path, and make sure this path is coming from AndroidXCompose UI graphics. I'm going to use here apply scope function. So first we have to move our brush from origin to a specific point. So for that we'll use here move to function. Now in its we have to pass the coordinates x and y coordinates. So for that I'm using my canvas width and multiply this thing with 0.2f. For the y coordinates I'm using here size, height, and multiply this thing with somewhere 0.84f. So it will point over here. Okay, so now our brush will point over here. It's time to draw something. So I want to draw here a line. So for that we use here line to function. In this we are going to mention the coordinates. So first we have size, use its width and multiply this thing with 0.2f. Next we are going to use our y coordinates. So to do that, use your size, height, and multiply this thing with 0.99f. Use this triangle path in your draw path function. Here you can see we have a small straight line. Okay, so now I'm gonna create one more line using size, width times, and I want to move this thing a little bit horizontally. So for that simply multiply this thing with 0.3f. Next we have y coordinates. So I'm using here size, height, and I want to multiply this thing with 0.91f. So little bit upwards. So by doing it, it will create a triangle on the bottom. Here you can see. Let me open this icon. So here you can see this is a triangle and I want to color this triangle with a blue color. So to do that, remove this style with fill. Okay, so here we go. This time our triangle is properly filled with blue color. So now it's time to design this electric sign within our oval shape. So let's do that. So for that, first thing first, I'm gonna simply use this draw path and paste in here. In order to create electric path, we'll have one variable and the variable name is electric path. Okay, use here path, apply scope function. So first I'm gonna move my brush from origin to a specific point. So size dot width dot times 0.2f and its y coordinates is coming from height times 0.6f. Okay, so next I'm gonna create a line. So size dot width, multiply this thing with 0.45f. Similarly for the y coordinates I'm using here 0.34f. Okay, so now it's time to use this electric path to show this thing in the preview. So remove this thing and change its color from blue to white. Also I want to use here stroke. Okay, and in its width I'm using 12f. So this is our first line. Now I'm gonna simply duplicate it and play with these values. So let's use here 0.55 and here use 0.45. Let me show you the icon. So here you can see. So first we go little bit on the upward direction, then we go down, again little bit upward, then down, then upward, and lastly we'll simply attach to the starting point. So we go up, down, and this time again we have to go up. So for that let's duplicate this thing. Horizontally we will go little bit on the right side. So for that we'll use here 0.8, and for the y coordinates we'll go little upwards. So it's time to decrease some value. So let's use here 33f. Yeah, it looks cool. Now it's time to go down again. So open up this icon. You can see this time we go down again. So for that just duplicate this thing and use here 5. And for y coordinates, because we are going down, it's time to increase the value of y coordinates. So use here somewhere 4.5. No, it won't work. Use here 5. No, it won't work. Use here 6. Yeah, this one looks cool. Okay, so let me open this icon one more time. Okay, so right now we are here. It's time to go a little bit upwards, and also horizontally will decrease the value. Duplicate this thing. Okay, so downgrade the x value Y value is also decreased because we are going a little bit on the up. Alright, so yeah, we are done. If you open up the icon here, you can see we are currently standing on this point. It's time to merge the starting and this end point. So to do that, you can use here close. And there we go, we have here our electric sign. It's time to fill this thing with white color. So to do that, you can simply use here fill. And there we go, this is our messenger icon. So it's a very easy one, but still you have to play with X and Y coordinates if you are using path to design some custom layouts or some gibberish layout. Now we are going to design Google Photos icon. This icon. So in this icon, if you notice, we are having here 4 different semicircle. So if you want to create semicircle in canvas, we will have a draw API function naming draw arc. So let's see how we can use it. So for that, create a composable, and the composable name is Google icons. And here I'm going to create a canvas. Use modifier, padding is 12 dp and size is 300 dp. So here I'm gonna use draw arc, pass the color. So for the time being, I'm using here a red color. Next we are having start angle. So by default it is start horizontally and always goes into clockwise direction. So it sweeps angle in clockwise direction. And if you want to sweep angle in anti-clockwise direction, on that scenario you will use here negative values. So if you want to do something like that, you will use negative values of your sweep angle, or you can say final angle. When you open up this icon, you will notice this is the arc that right now I'm designing. So it will sweep angle of 180 degree in clockwise direction. So let's do it. Start angle is 0f and sweep angle is 180 degree. And I want to use this center. So simply pass here true. On the top, I'm gonna add here preview. So background is also true. Okay, so in this draw arc, we have a parameter naming top left. So top left is present somewhere over here. So if you want to get this top left offset, what you can do, you can complete this circle, and on the top here draw tangent, and here on the edge you can draw a tangent. The intersection point of your tangent will give you the top left offset of this arc. Our requirement is something like that. So we have to move our top left offset. So if you complete this circle, our top left offset will present somewhere over here. That means vertically we have to move a 0.25 of our canvas size, and horizontally we have to move our top left offset half of the width. So for that, use here top left in the offset. So first we have to move horizontally. So size dot width and divide this thing with 2f. So currently right now we are present over here. Okay, so now it's time to move our y coordinate. So size dot height and simply multiply this thing with 0.25f. Now you can see over here, now our top left offset will present somewhere over here. Cool. Now it's time to reduce the size of our semicircle or arc. So use here size dot width, divide this thing with 2f. Okay, similarly size dot height, divide this thing with 2f. So we have our first semicircle. So we are done with this circle. Now it's time to design this second semicircle. So let's do that. Use draw arc. This time I'm gonna use here color blue. Okay, so my start angle this time, if you notice, so we have to sweep clockwise direction from -90. Okay, so first we have to move anti-clockwise 90 degree, sweeping the angle 180. Cool. So let's do that. So start angle is -90f and sweep angle is, from there we have to sweep clockwise 180. So use here 180f. Use the center. Cool. Here you can see. Now it's time to reduce its size. So for that I'm using here size. In place of width you can use this size width and divide this thing with 2f. Similarly for the height I'm using size height divide by 2f. Okay, So if you want to find the top left offset, you can simply complete this circle and draw one tangent from here and one tangent from here. So right now it points on the origin. So we have to move this thing horizontally. Okay, so if you move this thing horizontally 0.25, I mean somewhere over here, automatically it will push on the center. So let's see how we can do it. So for that you can use your top left offset. Simply use your size, width and multiply this thing with 0.25f, and when it's come to the y coordinates you can simply use 0f. There we go. This is our second arc. Now open up the icon. Next we have to create this semicircle. So from 0 we have to move anti-clockwise minus 180. Okay, so let's draw this. Draw arc. In place of color I'm using let's say yellow. Okay, my start angle is 0f and my swap angle is minus 180. So use here minus 180f. Use the center. Okay, so this is my semicircle. So first let's reduce its size. So use here size dot width, divide this thing with 2f. Similarly size dot height, divide this thing with 2f. Okay, so our top left offset will present on the origin. Now we have to simply move this thing vertically 0.25. I mean somewhere over here, automatically it will push this semicircle on the center. So for that use here top left offset, size, I mean for the x coordinate I don't think so we have to move any bit, so simply use here 0f. For the y coordinate use here size, height and multiply this thing with 0.25f. There we go. This is our third arc. Okay, so now lastly we have to create the last semicircle, I mean this one. So we have to swap angle from minus 90 to minus 180. I mean anti-clockwise we have to swap 180 degrees. So let's see how we can do it. So use here draw arc. In place of color this time I'm gonna use black color. Start angle is, so we have to start from minus 90 and go to the minus 180. So minus 90f. Swap angle is minus 180f. Okay, I want to use the center, so simply use here use center too. Okay, so this is my circle. Now how you can find the top left offset? Simply you can draw tangent from here and here. So right now it points on the origin. So first let's reduce its size by using size dot width dot divide by 2f, size dot height divide by 2f. Okay, now we have to move the top left offset 0.25 of the width, and vertically we have to move half of our height. So let's do that. So top left use here offset. So size width this time we have to move this thing 0.25f horizontally. Vertically we have to move this thing, I mean half, so 0.5, or you can simply use divide by 2f. It works in both cases. Okay, so this is our Google Photos icon. Alright, so we are done with this icon too. Now it's time to design Bezier curve. So let's see how we can design this iOS weather app icon, because here we have to use some curvish path. So for that first we have to create our composable, and the composable name is iOS weather app icon. In this we have our canvas. Modifier padding is again 12 dp. Size is of 300 dp. Okay, so first thing first we have to create a rounded rectangle. So this is our icon. As you can see, its container is in a form of a rounded rectangle. So let's create it. So a round rectangle, I'm using a color blue. Okay, next we are going to use here its corner radius. So corner radius, I'm using here 60f and 60f. remove this preview from Google icon composable and use here. Okay, let me increase this radius size. Use here 120 in the X and 120 in the Y. Okay, so this looks more similar, so I'm using this one. So now it's time to create this circle. So let's do that with the help of draw circle. You can create it. So for the color, I'm using here a yellow color. Okay, so automatically it will take the center of your canvas as its center, and radius will cover all the size that your canvas will have. In my case, we have 300 dp. That means its radius will be equivalent to 150 dp. So first reduce the radius. I'm using my canvas size, width, multiply this thing with 0.25f. Okay, now it's time to move this circle on the top left corner side. So let's do that. So for that we have here center. That center requirement is offset, and in this offset I'm using size width. So first we are going to multiply this thing with 0.35f. So this is my x coordinates. For y I'm using size, height, and multiply this thing with 0.45f. It looks pretty much close. We have a little big circle. Okay, so for that we have to reduce our radius. Yeah, now it looks fine. Cool. So we are done with this circle. Now it's time to design our cloud. Now this cloud will be designed with the help of curve path. So if you want to design something which have some curve path, so for that we are having here two different function in canvas that we will use to design it. But before that, let me show you something. So that type of curve that we will use to design this cloud is called bezier curve. Okay, and in bezier curve we are having two different way of curve: quadratic bezier curve and cubic bezier curve. So this is our quadratic bezier curve. If you want to draw a curve from point P0 to P2, then this will go like this. But the curvous nature of this path will be controlled by this point P1, and we will call this point as control point. So this is quadratic bezier curve. Similarly, we are having cubic bezier curve. Now here we have two different control points that will control the radius of your path. So let's see how we can use this thing in our canvas. So to do that, we are going to create a path, and in this we are having cubic 2, and similarly we are having quadratic bezier 2. So for this cloud I'm gonna use here cubic 2. So first thing first, we have to move our brush from 0,0 to here and start our curve from here like this, then this, then this, and ultimately simply close this curve. So let's do that. So first thing first, we have to move our brush. So I'm using size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.45f, and its y coordinate is height times 0,75f. Okay, so now it will point somewhere over here. Okay, let's start writing our path. So for that we will use here cubic 2 function. Now this cubic 2 function will contain 6 different parameters. So first two x1 y1 will represent the first control point, then we are having x2 y2 which will represent the second control point. Let me show you in this. Okay, now I think it's visible to you. So this x1 y1 will represent this p1, x2 y2 will represent p2, and x3 y3 will represent this point p3. Okay, so now it's time to play with it. First we are going to use our width and multiply this thing with 0.25f. So this is my first control point x coordinates, height times 0.75f. Okay, so this is my y coordinate of first control point. Now it's time to begin with the second control point. So use the size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.25f. For the y coordinate I'm using size, height, and I want this thing somewhere over 0.45, somewhere over here. Okay, Alright, so this is my control point. Now it's time to use the actual point that is actually used to draw our curve. So I'm using my size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.45f. Okay, now it's time to pass the y coordinate. So size, height times 0.5f. So this is my first cubic 2 point. Now I'm gonna use this path to draw. So use here a draw path, pass your path. Next it's time to pass our color. So for the color I'm using here color dot white, and yeah. Okay, so here you can see this is our curve. Okay, so the first part of our cloud. So now it's time to design this curve. Okay, so we have to first fetch this point and also give two control points that will control this radius curve. So let's do that. So for that I'm using here cubic 2. So for the first control point I'm using size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.45f. Next we have height, multiply this thing with 0.2f. I mean somewhere over here. This is my first control point. Next use size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.65f. Next we have height, multiply this thing with 0.15f. So these are my two control points. Now it's time to define the actual point that is used to draw this curve. Use your size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.75. Size, height, then multiply this thing with 0. I believe 4 will work. Yeah, 0.4. Okay, so this is my second point. Now it's time to use the last one. So first I'm using the size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.95f. Then I'm using the second control point, the first control point y coordinate. Multiply this thing with 0.35f. Size, width, multiply your second control point x coordinate 0.95f. Size, height, multiply this thing with 0.75f. Now it's time to define the point. For that I'm using your size, width, and multiply this thing with 0.75f. Size, height, and multiply this thing with 0.75f. And there we go. This is our cloud. I think this cloud is not looking very good, but still this is our cloud. I think we are pretty much done with it. Now it's time to just use here copy and reduce its alpha size 0.4f. Okay, I'll use 8. Yeah, I think this will work. Okay, so we are pretty much close. And yeah, that's it for this video. So in this video we saw a lot of draw API that you will use to draw custom component using Canvas. So I hope you like this video. If you like this video, subscribe my channel and also write your comment. If you have any problem to understand any draw API component, then let me know in the comments. We will meet in our next video where we will discuss something new about Android. Till that, goodbye.